You're going to be a granddaddy Tuesday or real soon, yeah. Tyler, how you doing, bud? So, anyway, I guess we ought to get, hello, Mrs. Ketron, how are you? I'm great. Yeah, I'm just great. Might as well be, yeah. There used to be a preacher that come on and had a radio program. He'd spend the first 30 minutes complaining about how bad off he was. And I thought, nobody really cares. So I try not to complain too much. All right. Kay's doing good. She went home. Your old buddy went home today. So that's good. Here comes Miss Deb and Jerry. Boy, we got a big crowd tonight. Ray's not here. Say a prayer for Ray. He's got a kidney stone on the move. Yeah, he was really suffering when I talked to him. When Ray don't want to stay on the phone and talk, he's got something going on. So he called me. I won't be there tonight. I'm trying to pass a kidney stone. One of the worst attacks I've ever had was with Paul and Wanda, and I was eating such a good meal that day. Paul was in the NHC, and I stopped by to visit and had lunch with him, and I'm sitting there, and I've had a couple of bites of food, and all of a sudden that kidney stone started to move. And I thought, oh, man. And so making a long story short, I said, I got to go, y'all. I said, I'm hurting really bad. Barely made it home, which wasn't that far away, went in there and grabbed a hold of the refrigerator and screamed like a banshee. And I looked over and Willie was there like this. He thought I'd completely gone crazy. But man, those things can hurt. I'll tell you that right now. Kay's home. She didn't have to have surgery, so that's a good thing. And they said she has to perform perform an action in order to be okay, but it's not that bad. It'll happen sometime, probably, if it hadn't already. So, but she's doing good, and that's good news. Because she was really hurting the other day. The ladies' Bible study group took her out and made her eat those broccoli, that broccoli and stuff, right, Wanda? Oh, that's right. You went there. You'd have probably told her, hey, you don't need to be eating that stuff. So. Yeah, the asparagus. That's what it was. Yeah. Judy, I don't know why I think I don't have to worry about diverticulitis. Judy's my diverticulitis doctor, by the way. She knows all the angles. But anyway, I had some caramel corn stuff here a while back, about 2 months ago. Man, it's tasty. I love caramel corn, and I was just putting that stuff down. I thought, well, if I chew it up real good, it won't hurt me. By the next morning, I couldn't even stand up straight. So fortunately, it went away. Any prayer requests that we have tonight? My wife's almost home. She's coming down the Cumberland Expressway, or whatever it's called, down through Kentucky and Cumberland Gap on down to Bean Station. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's wrong? You have cancer? His name's David. Hopefully he will be. How's our girl doing, Richard? About the same, huh? Just continue to remember Hannah in your prayers, because she's suffering from cancer. Awful young lady to be doing that, but I'm believing that she'll overcome it. At least we really hope so. I'm going to be a great granddaddy either tomorrow or Tuesday. Yeah, comes quick, doesn't it? Now, if I can just make it to great, I will have lived a long life. But anyway, they're excited about it. I know your first grandbaby. Yeah, that's right, it is. So, anyway. Richard, won't you open in prayer for us tonight? Bring us back next week on Easter. I don't know how I missed that. I know that Easter follows Palm Sunday. But man, I was really working hard, breaking down and editing my sermons to have 3 sermons up to Easter, and then I find out that I'm going to have to pack them all in next week. So that'll make for a long Easter service, won't it? Who's that griping back there? All right, turning your Bibles to Ephesians 6, if you will. We've been studying spiritual warfare, and I debated on whether I wanted to go into the full armor of God, but yet after going through the first part of it, if you don't go into the full armor, you just kind of leave people hanging out there without any weapons. So I thought I'd better go into the whole thing and explain what the weapons are and how they work. But in chapter 6 of Ephesians, beginning with verse 10, it says, "Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might, and put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of this darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. Stand therefore, having girded your waist with truth." We talked about that last week. And tonight we'll talk about putting on the breastplate of righteousness. And it goes on and it gives us the rest of the protection. And above all, take up the shield of faith, with which you will be able to quench the fiery arrows or darts of the wicked one, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God. So it gives us the armor that we need in spiritual warfare. I alluded to it this morning in the sermon. All the years I've been on earth, I know evil exists. We've been through very evil times. But I've never sensed the supernatural evil that we see today. There's almost a demonic entities that are promoting what we see going on in our society today. And it's happening all over the world, but here in America we see it. We see that half of our population is absolutely insane. And some of the things that they're touting, some of the things that they're promoting is nothing but demonic. And there's no other way you can put it. You know, we as Christians have put up with the demonic act of killing babies for years. Have you thought about how long we've sat back and done nothing? And we've attempted to, but there's been millions of babies killed in the mother's wombs since, I think, 1972 was when they came up with legalization of abortion. But that is the evil of the demon of Molech, I like to call it, because the people sacrificed their children to Molech in the Old Testament. The valley of Gehenna is where they sacrificed children, burned them. Christ compared it to hell, a terrible place that burned day and night. But as we've looked at this spiritual warfare, we've discovered that not everything is in a spiritual sense, but many of the things that we face are from a spiritual battle that we're placed in. And we talked about strongholds. The strongholds are something that we need to understand is playing with our minds, getting control or building a fortress around our minds with habits, with things that we are involved in that we can't seem to break away from. We're in this stronghold, and that is definitely spiritual warfare. You see many people that are controlled by these strongholds. People that profess to be believers that are controlled by these strongholds. So anyway, we're given the spiritual armor that we need to have in order to fight against these entities that are spoken of in the previous verses. The Roman soldiers' breastplate is what we're going to talk about today. We need the breastplate of righteousness, Paul said. Now, the Roman soldier's breastplate protected his upper body where all the vital organs are. That was the primary area that you could get a kill shot in. Now, the Bible has much to say about the heart. And the breastplate of righteousness protects our heart. Now, the word is used 833 times in 765 different verses in the Bible. We read in Jeremiah 17:9, the heart is deceitful. And it certainly is, isn't it? It's deceitful above all things, and it's desperately wicked. Who can know it? Who can control it? It takes overcoming in order to control the wickedness of the heart. And in Matthew we read, but those things which proceed out of the mouth come forth from the heart, and they defile a man. They come forth from the heart, and they defile a man. For out of the heart proceeds evil thoughts. Y'all ever have any evil thoughts? Murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witnesses. It all begins in the heart. The devil using our process in the heart with temptations. And he goes on to also bring in to that passage blasphemies. Now, these are the things which defile a man, but to eat with unwashen hands defileth not a man. So in this particular passage, some of the legalism that we hear about that we're not supposed to be involved in, Paul preaches against that. Peter preaches against that. But these other things that are mentioned are things that defile us and defile the heart. Now, this is why It's vital that we protect or we guard the heart area. As we read in Proverbs 4, in Proverbs 4:23, it says, keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Now, first off, righteousness must be the guardian of the heart. The word used here in our text occurs 92 times in the New Testament, including 30 times in the book of Romans. And because of the danger that we face from our enemy, the devil, God has provided a defense so that we can fulfill our duty and we can stand as we're commanded to do against the wiles of the devil. Now, if you note, as we consider the breastplate of righteousness and why it is needed to protect our hearts, to protect the wickedness that comes forth from the heart. The heart is deceitful, Jeremiah says. A former pastor of mine, I loved him like a father, and he and I used to talk, and he told me one time, he said, you know, Alan, he said, I thought when I reached 55, I wouldn't have any battles with sin and temptation. He said, I think it's worse now than before. And I thought, wow, man, what have I got to look forward to? But the fact of the matter is, we never get so old that we're not deceived by sin and temptation. We never get to a point where we're not deceived. But in Jeremiah 17:9, it says, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? Now, I've heard of people say that making decisions, in making a decision, they just follow their heart. Follow your heart will get you in trouble. I know lots of marriages that are in trouble because someone followed their heart. Well, I know he's crazy. I know he don't go to church. I know he cusses like a sailor, and I know he fights all the time and gets drunk every Friday night. But my heart tells me he's going to be a good man someday. Good luck. Chances are very slim that that'll take place. I've had so many young people that are planning to get married, and they follow their heart. And then I've heard this, and I've shared this with you before, and it's something that's always just astounded and blew me away. When you have a couple that wants to come in and counsel that are going through marital issues, and especially if the man has got him a girlfriend on the side. And 9 times out of 10, when you hear from male or female, I just don't love you anymore, it means they got another man or woman over here on the side. That's exactly what it means. They're following their heart, Todd. I've even had them tell me that. I love it when they say, it must be of God or I couldn't love her as much as I do. While they're deep in adultery with that individual. That is so anti-biblical and so far removed from what the Bible teaches, it's unbelievable. But the deception of the heart can convict you. It's okay. So we see that the heart is deceitful above all things. So if we follow our hearts, we have to realize that's a very dangerous practice to follow. You may be wondering why. It is because our heart is deceitful, and we can count on it being deceitful. Now, first off, the heart deceives us about sin. We can justify our sin by following our heart. Well, it's not that bad. It won't cause that much of a problem. God will forgive me for it anyway. You know, we think, and all of us think that way. All of us think our sin's not as bad as the other person's sin, but sin is sin in the eyes of God. But the heart deceives us about sin. In James 1, verses 14 and 15, it says, but every man is tempted. Every woman is tempted too. But every man is tempted, and it's referring to both male and female, when they are drawn away of their own lusts and they're enticed. Then, when lust has conceived, it brings forth sin. And sin, when it is finished, brings forth what? Death. The Bible tells us the wages of sin are death. So our heart can lead us to an early death if we're deceived by our heart. Galatians 6, 7, and 8 says, don't be deceived. God is not mocked, for whatsoever a man sows, that shall he also reap. That's kind of scary, isn't it, when you think about it? When we're just out there in the world enjoying our sin and everything, eventually we're going to reap a harvest from that. I had a pastor told me when I first got saved, and I had sown a lot of bad seed. When I first got saved, he told me this. He said, let me tell you something, Alan. He said, you'll probably still have to reap the harvest from how you've lived. I said, but I thought I was delivered when I got saved. That's what Benny Hinn told me, and Kenneth Copeland told me that I was totally forgiven, don't have to suffer anymore. And if I send them $1,000, I'll get $1,000 back. Oh, man, I tell you, this Christian thing ain't what I thought it was. It's like I told you, when you first get saved, you're entering a battle. You're not entering this playground that the health and wealth people want to tell you about, but you're entering into a battle. But he told me that, and I thought, you mean I'm going to have to reap some of the things that I've sown? He said, yeah. He said, I'll tell you how to overcome it. Start sowing good seed. He said, just start. He said, it's called the law of reciprocity. The law of reciprocity means you will reap what you sow. If you sow good, you'll receive good eventually. That'll be your harvest. If you sow evil, you will reap a harvest of evil. Made sense to me. Does it make sense to you? But anyway, we see that the heart is deceitful. If we follow our heart, sometimes it takes us in the wrong direction. For he that sows to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption. But he that sows to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting. So that's some pretty strong words. Now, the heart deceives us about the shortness of time. And boy, am I realizing that now, how short time is. A lot of folks think, well, I've got the rest of my life to make a decision for the Lord. I don't have to worry that much about it. Well, Matthew 24:44 says, therefore be you also ready, for in such an hour as you think not, the Son of Man comes. So we've got people all over the world that are lost in sin on the way to an eternal hell that's not worried about eternity. They're not worried about what's going to happen eventually in eternity. Luke 12:40 says, be ye therefore ready also, for the Son of Man comes at an hour when you think not. Now, to the lost today, the time of salvation is now. The time of salvation is today. To the Christian, we know that the world is full of people that need the Lord because the time of the Lord's return is near. But I think we've all been around long enough to realize you cannot twist a person's arm and make them get saved. Pete, that little girl that's coming to church here, I talked to her this morning briefly. We're going to meet again and talk in detail about her salvation. But I was going to talk to her today, and I asked her, I said, are you saved now? Have you been? She said, yes. I just wanted to talk to you about joining the church and being baptized, this, that, and the other. And I said, you're saved. You're sure of that? She said, yeah. I said, well, we don't need to meet right now then. We'll meet next week, and we'll talk about salvation, what it is. And she was pretty certain about her salvation. That's Kaylee's little friend that was here with her today. She's been coming to church here quite a bit. So I wanted to make sure that she was assured of her salvation, because I didn't want to let her go unless she was assured of it. because you never know. Here again, the heart deceives us about the shortness of time. No matter what our age, we don't know how much time we have left. We sometimes think we got a lot of time when we don't. Sometimes, no matter how young or how old we are, God is the one that determines our time on this earth. And the heart is also desperate. Jeremiah 17:9 says, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? The heart is wicked, and the heart will wander even if you profess faith. That's why you've got so many people that profess faith that doesn't seem to adhere to it. They seem to wander. There's an old Christian hymn that talks about those that wander away from their profession, and they wonder and they think, here again, they've got plenty of time. I can rededicate. I can I can take care of it in the future. When in fact, the time is short, and we don't need to be, as the old song says, prone to wonder. But many people are prone to wonder. In the song, Come Thou Fount, it says, oh, to grace, how great a debtor daily I'm constrained to be. Let thy goodness like a fetter bind my wandering heart to thee. Prone to wander, Lord, I feel it. Prone to leave the God I love. Here's my heart, oh, take and seal it. Seal it for thy courts above. Notice not only the heart is deceived and desperate, but the heart is also, it determines certain things, such as our disposition is determined in the heart. What does that mean? That means we decide in our heart what kind of person we're going to be, whether we're going to be a total jerk, whether we're going to be hateful, whether we're going to be a gossip, whether we're going to be an old sourpuss, whether we're going to be friendly, whether we're going to be sweet. It's determined in our heart. Well, that's just the way I am. Well, I don't care how you are. If you're a Christian, you ought to determine in your heart to love people and care for people and let them know that you do care for them. The other night, last Sunday night, Charlie, when we were back there talking, we talked about tell people now how you feel about them. Let them know now you love them. Don't wait till they're gone and then regret. Look back and regret. Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? I've had a lot of regrets when I think back. I wish I'd have spent a whole lot more time with my dad. Dad had strokes, but he could comprehend. I wish I'd spent time with him and just talked to him and spent time with him when I could. And Mom, I had regrets there. She was down at Wexford House. I wish I'd have spent more time there with her. But we all reach a point where we regret, and it's determined our disposition by our heart. Proverbs 17:22 says, a merry heart doth good like a medicine, but a broken spirit dries in the bones. Proverbs 15:13 says, a merry heart makes a cheerful countenance. You know, you meet some Christians and you'd think they hate everything. They hate the world. They hate everything around them. They never have a good word to say about anything, constantly critical. I've shared this with you before, the old boy that the pastor had a Freudian slip. He had an old guy that was constantly critical about everything in the church and was against everything. And the guy, the pastor said, brother so-and-so is going to give us a word here of criticism. He just came out smooth as could be. And then, of course, that was the same guy in this business meeting that was complaining about the chandeliers I love that story on the chandeliers because we had chandeliers over in the old building. But everything that came up in a business meeting, this old guy, that's why we don't have miscellaneous business. But everything that came up in a business meeting, this old guy, I'm again it. I'm again it. I'm again it. Whew. That's a guy that needs a Dake Bible up the side of his head. But anyway, we won't go there. Thank God I've never had any of those as far as I know, because we don't have miscellaneous business. So. But anyway, they were voting to get chandeliers for the church, and he said, I don't think we need it. I'm against it. Anyway, we ain't got nobody here can play the dang things. If we're going to spend money around here, we need to spend it on some better lighting. I think that's just a great story. I'm sorry to repeat it again, but I think that's one of the best stories ever about old Brother Critical. But anyway, a merry heart makes a cheerful countenance, but by sorrow of the heart the spirit is broken, we're told. Now, direction is determined by the heart. In other words, the direction we go in our life, whether we're going to be separated or not. Here's probably a passage that really is excellent about that. About coming to a moment, I'm going to throw this thing in the trash. It's doing it again. But anyway, I'm sorry about my countenance there. I just backslid, Todd. I'm going to throw this microphone in the trash. I'll tell you that right now. No reflection on you all, just the microphone. But all of us reach a crossroad in life where we have to either follow our heart or follow the Bible, one of the two. 2 Corinthians 6, 14, 18, and this is probably one of the most overlooked verses and least listened to in the Bible. It says, don't be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. Pretty simple, isn't it? Yeah, well, what about you and Debbie? You was an unbeliever. What about you two? She married you, you bum. She didn't know what the future was going to be, but there was about 10 years of hard times. I'll tell you that right now. I wonder if she questioned, should I have gotten married to him? So we don't know what the future holds, but in most cases, when you get married to an unbeliever, it never works out in the long run. Don't be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship has righteousness with unrighteousness? And what communion hath light with darkness? And what concord hath Christ with Belial? Or what part hath he that believes with an infidel? And what agreement hath the temple of God with idols? For you are the temple of the living God, as God hath said, I will dwell in them, and I walk in them, and I will be their gods, and they shall be my people. Wherefore come out from among them, and be ye separate, saith the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you, and will be a father unto you, and you shall be sons and daughters, says the Lord. So not being unequally yoked covers a lot of area, not just who you marry, but it covers who you hang out with. It tells us to be separated from darkness, from evil. So that covers a lot of area, not being unequally yoked with unbelievers. We like to think that's just about marriage, but it's not. Now, the old-time preachers used to love to use that, don't be unequally yoked, for their racist attitudes. They would like to say, well, that verse right there is saying a white woman shouldn't marry a black man. Has nothing to do with race. Nothing whatsoever to do with race. But yet the racists love to use that. A lot of Baptists, old-time Baptist preachers use that all the time to keep people separated from, well, Ron Bradshaw, he married a Korean girl. So if that's true, then Ron's unequally yoked because she's a Korean. But yet the old-timers used to love to use that verse to try to put forth their racist attitudes. And today, it's still something that is certainly used in certain camps. 2 Corinthians 7:1 said, having therefore these promises, dearly beloved, let us cleanse ourselves from all unfilthiness of the flesh and spirit, perfecting holiness in the fear of God, attempting to be separated from sin. Luke 21:34 says, and take heed to yourselves, lest at any time your hearts, there's that heart again, be overcharged with surfeiting and drunkenness and cares of this life, and so that day come upon you unawares. So the direction is determined, our direction of who we are pals with, who we marry, all those things are determined by separation. And then we have dedication is determined in the heart. What's dedication? Service. When you wake up on Sunday morning, you determine in your heart whether you're going to get up and go to church and worship or not. We have a lot of people come in late. Somebody mentioned it to me, and I said, I don't care. I said, as long as they get here, that's all I care about. You know, what we're going to do, keep people from coming to church because they're late. Hey, get out of here. You're late. Well, half the church would be gone on Sunday morning. But that's just the times we're living in. Young people can't get out of bed. Or in some cases, they got children that they got to take care of that are crazy as loons, and you can't get them rounded up in time to get them to church. So people have reasons not to come. Some don't come because they know exactly what time the offering is going to be taken. Since we don't take offerings here, we don't have to worry about that, do we? But through the years, I've seen people, and I know they've got it down to an art. Right after the offering, they come dragging in here. So our dedication to the Christian life is determined by the heart. Romans 10:1 says, brethren, my heart desires and prayer to God for Israel is that they might be saved. For as he thinks in his heart, so he is. Eat, drink, saith he to thee, but his heart is not with you. 1 Corinthians 3:9-14, for we are laborers together with God. You are God's husbandry. You are God's building, according to the grace of God, which is given unto me as a wise master builder. I have laid the foundation, and another builds upon that. But let every man take heed how he builds thereon. For other foundations can no man lay than that is laid, which is Jesus Christ. Now, if any man build upon the foundation of gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, stubble, every man's work shall be made manifest, for the day shall declare it, because it shall be revealed by fire, and the fire shall try every man's work of what sort it is. If a man's work abides, which he hath built thereupon, he shall receive a reward. So service is commanded by God. Over the last few years, I've really wrestled with obedience and service and people that are unfaithful, that claim to be Christians. And of course, that's not speaking to you guys. I mean, you're here. But people that just can't seem, you know, you see them occasionally. People that can't even sit through a service because they got to get up and go back to the bathroom 3 or 4 times and relieve themselves. You can do that before church. I don't know if you realize it or not, but you can do that. I made a comment like that one time, and one of the guy in the church, he isn't here. He's gone to heaven. But he came up to me after. He said, "Preacher, was you preaching to me this morning?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, I just want you to understand, I have to take a pee pill." I said, "What?" "Yeah." He said, "I have to take a pee pill." He said, "I can't control it. I have to get up and go out." Well, I said, "I'd rather you come and get up and go out and pee when you have to than not take that pee pill, which is good for you, I'm sure." But that was his reasoning, and I think that's a pretty good reason. So a lot of people have a good reason to get up and go out, but a lot of people can't sit through a whole service. But the heart determines our service to God. It determines our work. It determines our faithfulness. It determines our obedience. It determines all of those things. And then devotion is determined in the heart. What is devotion? Faithfulness. That means that we are devoted to something, that we've given ourselves over to it. Matthew 6:19-34 says, "Lay not up yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal, but lay up yourselves treasures in heaven." Now, we're not working to lay those treasures up, but yet that's something that God tells us that we need to do. We need to lay up our treasures in heaven and not be so concerned about success on this earth. Now, there's nothing wrong with being successful. As a matter of fact, our church probably wouldn't survive if we didn't have successful people. But the primary thing is lay up your treasures in heaven, where it can't be corrupted, and that's what it's saying. So that's the obedience that God wants from all believers. So the heart is wicked above all things, and we see in these illustrations that the heart is something that we need protected, and that's what the breastplate of righteousness does. It protects our hearts. Any comment before we close? Some of you look like you're in a state of shock that I'm quitting this quick. It's okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, breastplate, the word righteousness pretty much explains that. But the thing with the breastplate of righteousness that I see is that it is a defensive mechanism. All this armor is defensive except the last one, which is the Word of God. And I wouldn't have known that had Steve Horton not called me after one of our lessons, and he said, I thought I wanted to share this with you. I don't know if you know it or not, but there's only one offensive weapon in the armor of God, and that is the Word of God. So I thought that was interesting. Anybody else? All right. I hope we have a good... Oh, go ahead, Jeff.